Welcome to Nabeel Math Academy. This is Dr. Mohammed Nabeel. In this video, we are going to see the complex number. So, what is a complex number? A standard form of a complex number is given by the standard form of complex number is given by a plus I b, or you can write it this one as a plus bi. Both are same form, where the x and y, a and b, the a and b are the real numbers. The a and b are the real numbers, and the a is nothing but the real part of a complex number. A is called the real part of a complex number, and b is the imaginary part of a complex number. B is the imaginary part of a complex number, and where the I denotes by what is I is refers for minus square root of 1. So then what about the I square, which is equal minus 1? I square is equal minus 1. So using this rule you can solve the all the powers of I. Suppose if you have I power 4, how will you write I power 4? I can split this as I square into I. Why we are making square? Because I know the value of I square, which is equal minus 1. Just substitute the value here. So you will get minus 1 power square, which is equal plus 1, because the power is even. Now let us go to the next one, the higher powers of I. Suppose I power 50. So I can split this one I square into 25. So where I square is minus 1 to the power 25, therefore it is equal minus 1. Suppose if you have I power 51, so I can split this one I power 50 into I, that is equal I power 51. So since we have calculated this value in the above, I power 50, the value is equal minus 1 into I. So therefore the answer is minus I. So similarly, you can calculate the all the highest power of I. Now in this form, we will go through the addition and the standard form of a complex number. What is the standard form of a complex number here? So therefore here we will have square root of 15, 16. So it can be written as 4, and plus therefore this can be written as, if you separate the root, you will get square root of minus 1, square root of 25. So therefore it is 4 plus square root of 1. As we know before, the square root of minus 1 is nothing but I, and the 5 implies the square root of 25, which is 5. So this is the standard form of a complex number. Suppose if the question is asking what is the real part of a complex number, therefore I write it one by one. Therefore the real part is 4. Imaginary part, so imaginary part of a complex number is 5 without I. And the conjugate is just you have to change the sign of the imaginary term. So here 4 plus I5, so I write it 4 minus I5. So this is the real, imaginary and conjugate of the complex number. If the question is asking, you can write it. If it is not asking, you can stop up to the standard form of a complex number. Now the next one is the two complex number we are adding together. So how will you add these two complex number? So first you have to multiply. So what is the multiplication? It is 6 plus 2i. Then I multiply with the 3. So you will get here it is plus 3 minus 3i. Now add the real with the real part, imaginary with the imaginary part. So the real part is equal 6 plus 3, which is 9, and imaginary part 2i minus I, which is equal I. So this is the standard form of a complex number. Suppose if the question is asking the real part is 8, imaginary part, which is equal minus 1. The coefficient is minus 1. And the what is the conjugate for this term? So conjugate is the change the sign. If it is plus, I change minus. If it is minus, I will change plus. 9 plus I. So this is the conjugate. Now similarly, we will have the another one form where we will subtract the two complex numbers. So how will you subtract? Before subtracting, I have to multiply the conjugate 3. So what is the multiplication? Minus 21 plus 6i. When I multiply with the 5, you will get here minus 10 minus 5, because minus into plus minus. So you will get minus. Now added the real with the real part. So you will get minus 31 imaginary with the imaginary part, which is equal plus I. So therefore, if it is a real part, asking 31, imaginary part which is equal plus 1, and conjugate which is equal conjugate, just you have to change the sign, minus 31 minus I. So this is the answer. And always for conjugate you have to change the sign of the imaginary part, not the real part. So you have to change the sign of imaginary part. So only imaginary part. Now the next one, we will have a multiplication of two complex numbers. How will you multiply? So therefore here, this is the same thing we have done for the polynomial. Take one term and multiply with the both the terms. So you will get here as 35, then plus 28i, then we will have plus 10i. Next, plus into plus plus 4 into 2 8i square. Since we know that I square value is equal minus 1, therefore if you multiply you will get minus 8, and the remaining part will be the same, 35 plus 28i plus 10i. Now add the real with the real term, so which is equals, so 27, and imaginary with the imaginary part, which is equal 38i. So this is the final answer. Now the next one, we have the same thing, but we can use here the formula. What is the formula we can use? This is a minus b, this is a plus b. So only you can apply if you have a same term, then only you can use the rule. Otherwise you have to go with the FOIL method. Take one term and multiply with the both. So this rule is nothing but a square minus b square. So a square minus 2i square. So it implies 1 minus, if you apply the square inside, it is 4i square. Now I square value is equal minus 1. Therefore minus of minus, it become plus 1. So it is 4 plus 1, which is equal 5. Now the standard form is 5 plus 0i. So this is the standard form of a complex number where the real part is 5, imaginary part is 0. Now the next one here, so whole square is given. So this is the same thing, we will do it as the special formula. What is the special formula for this part? It is a plus b whole square, which can be given by a square plus 2ab plus b square. Therefore, this can be expanded as using this rule. Now, as per the rule, I just substitute a and b. You will get minus 3 plus 2i whole square. Now, if you apply this rule, minus 3 whole square plus 2 times of minus 3 into 2i plus 2i whole square. So therefore, just simplify, it is 9 minus into plus minus 2 into 3, 6, 6 into 4, which is equal to 12. So 12i. So if you multiply this part, you will get 2 into 2, 4. 4 into 3 is 12. So you can multiply like this way, plus 4i square. Since the I square value again, it is minus 1, therefore it becomes minus 4. And the remaining parts you have 9 minus 12i. When you added the real with the real part, so you will get 5 minus 12i. So this is the Standard form of a complex number where the real part is 5, imaginary part minus 12, conjugate 5 plus 12i. Now the last one here we will have the division of a complex number. Whenever you have a division, I have to multiply by the conjugate. So what is the conjugate of the denominator? The denominator conjugate is 1 minus I over 1 minus I. For all the problems, same rule you have to apply. You have to take the denominator and multiply the conjugate of the denominator. When you multiply it, what happened here? In the denominator, you will find it a minus b, a plus b whole square. That is a square minus b square. Whereas the first one, you have multiply with the 1. So if you multiply, you will get 1 minus I. Now the next one, I have to multiply with the I, the 2i minus 2i. So when I multiply with the 2i, you will get minus 2i minus into minus plus 2i square. And similarly, we know that I square value. We know that I square value. What is the I square value? Which is minus 1. So it can be written as 1 minus. You can add it the real to real. The imaginary part minus 3, which is equal minus 2 over 1 plus 1. So here we will have, if you added the real with the real part, it is minus 1 minus I over 2. Now if you want to calculate the real part you have to separate the denominator, minus 1 over 2 and minus 3 over 2. So this is the final answer. And where the real part is minus half and imaginary part is minus 3 over 2. So this is the standard form of the complex number. Similarly, the next problem is the same division. I have to multiply the conjugate. The conjugate is minus 2i over minus 2i. And then you have to multiply. You will get in the denominator minus 4i square. And in the numerator, I have to multiply with the each and every term. So you will get minus 8i minus into plus minus 5 into 2, which is 10, I into I, which is I square. So in the next step, I will replace I as minus 1. So I square as minus 1. I square as minus 1. So therefore, you will get minus 8i. It become plus 10 over. Therefore, it become plus 4. Minus of minus, it become plus 4. Now, I have to write it the proper order. The real part is the first and the imaginary part is the second one over 4. Now if you want to separate 10 over 4 minus 8 over 4 I. Now cancel, so you will get 5 over 2. This is 2. So the real part is here, it is 5 over 2 minus imaginary part is minus 2. So this is the standard form of a complex number. Now the last problem of this chapter, which is all the square roots are there here with the powers of I. So how will you solve? This is equal 5I. Why? The minus is inside the root. Therefore, you have to write it I. Plus here, I write it only 7 without I because there is no negative term inside the root. Now plus, what about the I power 3? How will you calculate I power 3? As I discussed before itself, I can split as I into I square. So I square value is equal minus 1. Therefore, I cube is minus I. So this is minus I. I write it minus I. And what about the I power 4? So I power 4 already we have calculated I square into whole square, which is minus 1 whole square, which is equal 1. So this is I power 4 is equal 1. So I substitute 1 here. Now added the proper form, the standard form of a complex number minus I plus 1. So add with the real part, which is equal 8, imaginary with the imaginary part, which is equal plus 4i. So be plus 4i. Thank you.